Now we go to the New Testament, and we're going to hit Matthew, and this is one of the biggest ones in my estimation on judging specifically. This is Matthew chapter 7, verses 1 through 5. Most of you have probably heard verse 1, but a lot of people that I've spoken to over the years, both believers and non believers, who disagree with being judged or judging someone else, will quote this verse. They may not know where it is, they may not know book, chapter, verse, but they know it by heart. Matthew 7, 1 through 5. Jesus is speaking here. Do not judge so that you won't be judged. Most people know that as the King James Version, judge not lest you be judged. But that's where most people stop. They don't continue to read. Let's continue. Verse 2. For with the judgment you use, you will be judged. And with the measure you use, it will be measured to you. Now, when you read those first two verses, it really sounds like Jesus is saying, don't judge. That's not a safe bet. But when we read verses 3 through 5, we recognize what Jesus is actually saying. Verse 3, why do you look at the speck in your brother's eye, but don't notice the log in your own eye? Or how can you say to your brother, let me take the speck out of your eye, and look, there's a log in your eye? Hypocrite, first take the log out of your eye, and then you will see clearly to take the speck out of your brother's eye. Verse 5 is where it all culminates. Jesus is saying this is how you're supposed to judge. When you judge someone, you have to make sure that whatever you're judging about them, you have correct in your life. You are not able to judge rightly or righteously if you don't have that aspect of your life in check for you. So if you have an addiction, let's say to alcohol, and you drink constantly, but you see someone else at the bar or wherever, and you start telling that person, you really shouldn't drink for whatever reason, whether you come at it from a physical angle or a spiritual angle. But the fact that you still drink doesn't give you the right to tell them that they shouldn't drink. Because what are they going to say? If they know you and they know you drink, obviously their follow-up statement is going to be, well, you do it. So we need to make sure we have our lives right in those areas. We shouldn't be judging on areas that we don't have correct in our lives. Next, we go to the book of John. So John, chapter 3, verses 18 through 20. Anyone who believes in him is not condemned, but anyone who does not believe is already condemned because he has not believed in the name of the one and only Son of God. This then is the judgment. The light has come into the world, and people love darkness rather than the light because their deeds were evil. For everyone who practices wicked things hates the light and avoids it, so that his deeds may not be exposed. So the judgment is that light coming into the world. Now, of course, John here is speaking about Christ specifically, Christ being the light of the world. But if you remember, Jesus himself calls his apostles and Christians the light of the world. So if John here is speaking of Christ, the light has come into the world, and people love darkness rather than light, so they're going to scatter like roaches when the lights are turned on. When Jesus calls us the light of the world, we are supposed to expose those things as well. But we need to do it with the right attitude, and we need to do it with the right context and judge rightly. Next, we have John chapter 5, verses 14 through 16. After this, Jesus found him in the temple complex and said to him, see, you are well. Do not sin anymore, so that something worse doesn't happen to you. The man went and reported to the Jews that it was Jesus who made him well. Now, this passage, Jesus heals a man on the Sabbath, which verse 16 says, Therefore, the Jews began persecuting Jesus because he was doing these things on the Sabbath. The Jews have a law, they have a law that there is no work to be done on the Sabbath. The man that Jesus healed was lame, and he was waiting by a pool of water so that he could get into the water and possibly be healed. Jesus heals him. The man jumps up, grabs his mat that he was lying on, and starts dancing with joy. And the Pharisees rebuked him because he had picked up his mat. And they said, "It is illegal for you to pick up your mat on the Sabbath." So that's why they started persecuting Jesus, because they looked at him as working on the Sabbath. So then we go to same chapter, chapter 5, verse 30. Jesus here is speaking to the Pharisees. He says, "I can do nothing on my own. I judge only as I hear, and my judgment is righteous because I do not seek my own will, but the will of him who sent me." I think that is pretty much hitting the nail on the head. If you're judging someone righteously, you're not doing it for your own benefit. You're not doing it because you want to seem more popular in the eyes of those who may be watching or listening. You're not trying to puff yourself up. You're doing it for God's glory. You're doing it to try to help that person fix whatever it is they need fixing. So you're looking out for their best interest, both physically and spiritually, ultimately. Then we go to John chapter 7. Excuse me. After this, Jesus traveled in Galilee, since he did not want to travel in Judea because the Jews were trying to kill him. The Jewish festival of tabernacles was near, so his brothers said to him, "Leave here and go to Judea, so your disciples can see your works that you're doing. For no one does anything in secret while he's seeking public recognition. If you do these things, show yourself to the world." For not even his brothers believed in it. Excuse me. So his brothers are saying, "Look, man, you're trying to get recognition for all this stuff you're doing. This is where you need to go. All these people are going to be here. You need to go show off," essentially, because they thought he was just trying to show off, and they didn't believe in who he said he was. Verse 6, Jesus told them, "My time has not yet arrived, but your time is always at hand. The world cannot hate you, but it does hate me because I testify about it that its deeds are evil." This is John 7, verses 1 through 7. Does that last statement ring a bell? Does that sound familiar at all? Look at the world we live in today. Jesus says, "The world cannot hate you," verse 7, "but it does hate me because I testify about it, that its deeds are evil." When you tell the world that what it's doing is evil, you are always going to get backlash. If you straight up tell somebody that what they're doing is wrong, you're going to get backlash most of the time. Then we go to verses 21 through 24. Same chapter. Jesus is talking to the Pharisees here about healing this man on the Sabbath. "I did one work, and you were all amazed," Jesus answered. "Consider this. Moses has given you circumcision. Not that it comes from Moses, but from the fathers," meaning their ancestors. "And you circumcise a man on the Sabbath. If a man receives circumcision on the Sabbath so that the law of Moses won't be broken, are you angry at me because I made a man entirely well on the Sabbath?" Verse 24. Pay attention, if you haven't already. "Stop judging according to outward appearances. Rather, judge according to righteous judgment." Jesus himself here says, judge according to righteous judgment, not based on outward appearances. We are not judging essentially what we're looking at. Just because someone looks like they are prim, proper, maybe wearing a $100 suit, doesn't mean they're rich. Someone who looks poor, raggedy, doesn't mean they're poor, doesn't mean they're homeless. So he's teaching the Pharisees, or trying to, by saying, stop judging according to outward appearances. Rather, judge according to righteous judgment. So, lastly, last verse we're going over is Romans 2, verses 1 through 3. Paul says, therefore, any one of you who judges is without excuse, for when you judge another, you condemn yourself, since you, the judge, do the same things. This echoes Matthew 7, 1 through 5. Verse 2, we know that God's judgment on those who do such things is based on the truth. Do you really think any one of you who judges those who do such things yet do the same, that you will escape God's judgment? If you're judging someone for doing something you know is a sin, and you're doing the exact same thing, you're not helping your case with that person or with God. So, what can we say? Should Christians judge? Absolutely. Is judging wrong? Not at all. Unless you do it incorrectly. With judgment, in my estimation, comes responsibility. For those of you that are Spider-Man fans, or you've seen the movies, with great power comes great responsibility. When we judge someone, we have to have the right mindset, we have to have the right attitude, and we need to be able to judge them rightly. We judge the behavior, not the character of the person. We judge based on righteous judgment, not on outward appearance. We make sure that our lives are clean in the area that we're judging. So when we're judging someone, we have to understand that we ourselves are not perfect, which is why we need to judge based on righteous judgment. We need to judge based on the facts, the truth of the situation, the truth of the behavior, and not just on outward appearance. I hope this has helped you understand judgment a little better. I hope that this has shown you a way to understand this a little bit better. Thank you for watching. I appreciate your time. I love you guys. If you like this video, you know what to do. Throw me one of these. Subscribe, share it with your friends, and push it out as far as you can. Let's try to reach as many people as we can with God's help. Thank you again, and I look forward to seeing you guys next time. God bless.